Hello, hello.
And those countdown things, they always get me so hyped. Then I feel like it's like we need a better transition into us because it's like such a letdown where you like get so hyped and then it's just like, well, you're three people in their offices.
So there's an easy answer for that. We just need like a really boring ending to the countdown timer so that literally anything would be better than what we're watching, you know? Maybe Rick roll people or something.
I'm thinking the opposite though. No, I'm thinking like wrestling style introductions for us, right? Like
okay, so we bring the hype.
Yeah, exactly. No, we gotta raise our level to the level of the countdown video.
I gotcha. Don't make it more boring. That makes a lot of sense. I'm really glad you're here. Welcome everybody. I see people popping in. I know with ads and Twitch it can be a bit slow, so we're gonna do a longer. Usually I like the 2-minute countdown timer. I really do, because it gives, like, no matter how long your ad time is or where the people are, it gives them time so they don't miss introductions. But I think, let's see, yeah, we're almost a minute in. We should be okay. So I'm Alyssa Nicoll, Angular developer advocate at Kendo. I always say at KendoUI, and then I'm like, no, it's at progress for KendoUI. Either way, I love them both. It doesn't matter. So, and an Angular GDE, and then I'll pass the mic. Hold on, I can do it this way.
This way. So it's, oh no, I got to do it like
good.
this.
Yeah,
I'm TJ VanToll. Work as a developer advocate on the KendoReact team. And then also with us, let's see, I got to go like
hold on
this way.
This one is not as difficult to get wrong.
Thank you. Now I have the ball. Hi, everybody. Carl Bergenhem. I'm the product manager for all the KendoUI products. And now I guess I'll just toss the ball up in the air and then anybody can grab it, right?
Yay! So we are celebrating our R2 release, which I was pretty upset about this, Carl. You know how Angular, like, I don't even know how many versions back, they synchronized all their numbers. So like we just hit V12, and that means that the CLI and core and common and like literally everything that belongs to Angular is on version 12. And I was gonna do that for this release. I was gonna be like, hey, we're on, I don't know, version 158 or whatever we're on. And I think all of our modules and packages are on like their own versions. So we don't have like, is that why we always say like R2 release? Because that's the common thing that joins them together.
Yes. Yeah. When we first started creating the Angular packages, since it was the first foray into creating separate packages for separate components before, you know, a lot of our experience was in jQuery. And then when we were developing AngularJS 1.x, like it was all just kind of, you know, either the individual minified JavaScript files for the individual components. And this was the first time when we started creating these kind of packages. So we said, what makes sense is that each package has its own version, because what if we don't update the buttons this time, but we update the grid a bunch of times, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you'll find when you go into the changelog of each package, you'll find a lot of different version numbers. Yeah.
What? Okay. So is this what's the normal way? Like, besides Google, besides Progress, like, what's the normal version? I don't know. How do people version?
I don't think there is a normal,
exactly,
for better or worse, because it kind of depends. Like, you have like Google's big on we're okay with big numbers and we're going to keep bumping them up. Like Chrome sort of famously was one of the first to do this. Then there are other companies that treat versions as like marketing opportunities. Like I'd say like Apple, kind of like with the iPhone and some of their software, like they make big deals out of the numbers, right? So they don't want their numbers to get up into the like hundreds and such, because they want to make a big push on them.
So they might have more subversion changes than other people who are just willing to like up the main version. I thought there was an industry standard, and you two were really like letting me down here.
Well, there's SemVer, right? Like, so you're like, if you follow semantic versioning, there's some rules behind that. But even then, there's some bit that's open for this, like, because you can always bump up the major version if you like. You have to bump it up if there's breaking changes, but you can always do it, like, if you just want to do it, like, because what is considered a breaking change, like. It's like very
subjective.
It's subjective. Like, is it your public API? Well, but if you change the way something works under the hood, that might affect somebody that's using your software. I don't know. We could spend the whole.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So is React doing the same thing on the KendoUI side with numbers?
Actually,
do you know?
Interestingly enough, we have one version number for all the packages, so they are individual packages. But we decided with the React product that we were actually going to make it so that they all had the same version.
Yeah, it's like Angular.
Yeah, exactly. So just like Angular. So it's
this makes me so sad, Carl.
Yeah. Oh, come on, sad. Listen, it's all just a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. We still deliver great software. We still have these streams, you know.
It is, but it is, but whenever you see a version number meeting pop up on your calendar, just know that's me griping about how I want them all to match, and I want us to match Angular. I want us to be like just reset to version 12.
Oh, just magically make everything version 12.
That would,
that would probably throw a lot of people off, considering that like some might have like a 3 in front of them at this point. You know?
Oh, right.
Yeah,
and they'll be like, "What happened to the rest?" And we'll be like,
"Yeah, what happened to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?"
For the ages.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So today, let's explain the week a bit, because it's kind of, if you look at Code It Live, the schedule, it's kind of like, whoa, what's happening this week? Everything's different. Ivana said that would be so exciting on social. Yeah, no, see, I'm with her. I think going from 3 to 12 is no big deal. The problem is if we've got any like 58s or something, and then we are like, never mind, we're back to 12. I think that's the real problem.
Yeah. And actually, I can't, off the top of my head, I can't tell you if that's going to be the case or not. I don't think so. But I'm not gonna go live on stream and say nope, not at all. And then
listen, we're gonna take the snippet of your promise, and we're gonna take that up the ranks until this
legally binding and everything. I know.
Oh goodness, Ivana, we might get canceled. Oh my goodness. Is there a way? Okay, let me I'm gonna pull up our schedule and just kind of explain the week before we jump into our own personal content. Because I'm trying to find it. Where is it?
While you're bringing it up, Aaron Stanley King, are you gonna skip 13? That's another good one. Ooh, I couldn't believe that, like, I did not know that was a thing with elevators until I actually ran into it in the wild. That like people like buildings actually do skip floor 13. Like I thought that was just like an urban legend, but it's like a real thing.
Yeah, there's some comedian that has a bit about it. I forget who it is. But essentially the gist of it is people that stay on floor 14, you know what floor you're really on. You know, like you know, just because they slap a different label on it doesn't mean that we magically skip the 13th floor.
Where was it? What city? It was some city that had themed floors. Each floor was like, it was a movie hotel. And each floor was a different movie theme. And I'm super like, I never book my hotels. Zach does that for me. And so I had no idea where I was staying or what I was doing. I literally just follow the itinerary on maps, and then I go. And so I show up and they give me the key, and I go up and I press 13, and I didn't think anything of it. And I get off and it's this horror like floor. And I call him and I was like, "This is the coolest thing ever. What's happening?" He's like, "I thought you'd like the horror floor." So apparently there's different themes. So yeah, I
oh, that's a lot of fun.
They use the number 13, but I don't think I've seen a number 13 since in an elevator. So okay, so I do have, let me share this real quick. It's not the same way that it always looks, so I know I'm doing this wrong, but like, okay. Because this is what we're looking at. And usually we have like Blazor Power Hour, and we've had a Worthy web stream going on, but this week, and I don't know where it is. See, I feel like I'm doing it wrong. Yeah, this is our normal schedule. Anybody help? I was over here and I clicked schedule, and the last time I was on that link, it totally looked normal.
Get head to, I'll drop a link in the chat.
Oh, thank you, darling. You're the best. You're the literal best. This is our
the release stuff webinar. Is all on the top there.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah.
So we have so many wonderful streams. So we've got today's stream, which is for KendoUI products, and then tomorrow we have Telerik products on the Twitches, and then we have 2 more, I think, so that we can kind of hit other time zones. So These are our Twitch sessions, but then all of this, of course, is leading up to the wonderful and awesome webinars, which I'm really excited. You might see sneak peeks of slides or demos that we're going to be showing during the webinars, but this week is just kind of our post-release week that we're just amplifying what features and new components our products have and what we're excited about. So yeah, anything to add to that, gentlemen?
No, I'd just say too that, like, especially today, we're just hanging out here. So this is a great chance. If you have any questions, if you've played with the new releases, you're curious what's in them, you're curious about really whatever, this is honestly your best chance to ask those sorts of questions. If there's certain components you want us to show off, to play with, certain features, feel free to chime in.
And I was going to throw up the banner. I'm like literally rubbish at this. So if anybody knows where the banner is, feel free to throw that up. Of the webinar link, just so that everyone knows where to find it. Thank you.
I gotcha.
You're beautiful. This is why I don't book hotels. You're like, hello.
You just bring up a piece of paper and be like, webinar. See, it says it right here.
Right, obviously. Oh, okay. So I have a guest that I'm bringing on. So I want to do my Kendo spiel. Oh, you found the banner. There it is.
It did take me a minute, but I found it.
Okay, TJ, afterwards, can we talk about banners and how to find them? Thank you.
Yeah, it's tough stuff. It's.
Oh, sorry. We're like way behind. Okay, so I have a guest that I'm bringing on. Super special, super excited. And then I want to show you just a couple slides, teasers from my webinar slides to get you amped. But before we do any of that, I need you all to mentally prepare yourselves because I'm going to tell you a story about why I was running late this morning, because of this glorious item was in my way that my sister had left me. And she's kind of scary to some people. She is a squirrel.
You showed me this before we started briefly, and I did not catch the bracelet.
Oh, the bracelet.
No, TJ,
I'm crying.
This whole thing. She's on this like really heavy plank of wood. So the story is I grew up with a household of really insane women, 2 sisters and a mom who all have extreme ADHD and are as crazy as I am. So if you can imagine, our house was a lot of fun. One of them found this gorgeous lady at, I don't know, some sort of garage sale. And why is there an anklet on the squirrel? I know. So we take turns decorating the squirrel with new outfits.
As one does.
And we give her for different holidays. So my sister Natalie in Kentucky gave her to me for Christmas. I think this is her Easter wear. I think Madison may have added her fancy Easter wear. So anyways, that's the she doesn't have a name. She needs a name. Oh. But I just wanted you all to know that was like just right in the middle of my workspace, and I just couldn't stop laughing. So I was like, I'm coming, guys. I promise. I'm here for this. I'm love you all. Okay. So yes. So if you're ever running late, be like, dude, there was a squirrel in my office. It's a whole thing,
It had an anklet. It was confusing. I didn't know what to do with it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm going to pull up. I want to press play on this. Okay. I'm just going to share my screen, share, and then I'll blaze through this and bring on our guest, and it's going to be epic. I don't know. If I share my entire screen like this, everybody, do you see my slides when I go over here, or are you still seeing Chrome?
See slides.
Yeah.
Oh, pool. I just said pool for cool because that makes sense. Awesome. This is a sneak peeker. So yes, obviously at Alyssa Nicoll, that's in the name tag. But throughout this week and at our webinars at KendoUI or #HeyKendoUI, we'll have different, like we'll always be pulling in the hashtags and at KendoUI if you have questions during the streams, during the webinars. So if chat's not good enough for you. And then of course, as I said, these are just my advertisements for myself. We're just going to blaze right on past those. No blazer joke intended. And this was the gorgeous article that Carl wrote. I need to send him, I don't know if you like fruit, maybe some sort of, fruit basket, because seriously, every release, without fail, you write these amazing blog posts outlining what's new. And I just, every time. So I know it sounds cheesy, but they really are so detailed and wonderful. And I enjoy reading them myself. So, so if there's anything that you want to dive into more, please check out that article written by the glorious Carl. But this is what I wanted to celebrate. I'm so excited. Kendo UI for Angular turns 100 this release. I'm just 100 components. That is not years. Carl, how many years are we?
I mean, it feels like 100 years at this point. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm like, not 100 years, everybody. It's okay. We turned 100 components. I was so excited when I found this out. And these are the new ones, the new components and the new features. So we have a bottom navigation, a multi-select tree, circular gauge, and a skeleton component that were all added as new components to Kendo UI for Angular. But then we also have these features over here on the right. And how I like to break it up is based on what existing component got the updated features. And then later on, I'll dive into those features. So this is just me sharing a teaser on what we're going to dive into this week, because I've got some Angular demos where I'm using our new stuff. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. But I think it's time, without further ado, to bring on our special guest. Are you all ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So ready.
Okay. Okay. Hi, special guest.
Hi.
Oh,
Special host.
Okay, so this is, and please forgive me if I butcher it, Dimitar Topalov. Did I do it right? Was that okay? Someone
Mostly,
correct
yes.
me? Mostly? All right, correct me. You do it.
Yeah, it's Topalov.
One more time.
Topalov.
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 It's beautiful. I love it. Welcome.
Great.
This is a amazing, brilliant engineer from the Kendo UI for Angular team that agreed to indulge me with my questions.
you're embarrassing everybody.
And also, I'm going to trade with TJ real quick because it's not fair. Okay. The banner's like cutting off faces, so I didn't want poor TJ to be headless the whole time. So it's fine. Anyways, we're here. So Dimitar, congrats on 100 components. And can you just give us a quick introduction about, I guess, your official title and what you do on the team?
I'm a senior software engineer in the Kendo UI for Angular team, and I'm working on the new components, the existing components, fixes, features.
And
also support system, staying up to date with customers and their desires.
Nice. I think I froze. I apologize. I'm still here with you though. There we go. I don't know. It was touch and go there for a sec. Okay. So very, very cool. Have you always been on the Angular side of life, or maybe you?
Yeah, mostly. I'm in the jQuery team that used to be one bigger team before all React and Angular and Vue showed up. So 5 years ago, I was part of the Kendo UI for jQuery team, and then when the team split up and we started doing the suite for Angular, I transferred to this team.
Do you ever go to the NG Confs or any of the big conferences so we can hang out in person?
NG Conf in Salt Lake City a couple of years ago, 2019, I think.
Okay, so I'm gonna make sure you get a ticket to the next, the in-person one, so that we can have a cup of coffee or something. Because I'm like, man, I want to meet you.
You're also welcome to Sofia.
I know. Man. When flying is a thing again, you're gonna be really sad that you invited me, because you're gonna be like, this girl won't leave me alone. It's fine. So
boats and stuff.
Wait, did you say there's goats?
Goats too.
Oh.
Boats and goats. Yeah.
You had to get goats to meet her.
Take the scenic route.
Okay, have TJ and Carl, have you both been to Sofia to visit everybody there? Because we have an office there with a ton of devs and brilliant people. So you both know about the boats, not the goats.
Yeah, I mean it's a landlocked city, so you know. But I've seen some boats in Bulgaria when I've been next to lakes, and then if you drive a little bit further east, you eventually do hit a sea. So you know, there's boats there.
The way that Carl says that is like, you should know this is landlocked, Alyssa.
No. It's more.
I don't even know where I am.
Yeah. It's more imagining where I'd see a boat in Sofia, but you know, there might be a river that I haven't seen boats on. You know, potentially. I come from a landlocked city that we have a canal that goes through, so you see boats there all the time because you know, even though it's landlocked, the canal makes it so that you get a lot of boats. So you never know.
Sorry if I scared you with my squirrel Dimitar. I know you're backstage. He was smiling, so hopefully he wasn't too frightened by my family story. Oh, did I lose you? Are you there? I think. Oh, no, you're there. I was like, are you frozen? Okay. So tell me, what is it like to work on a component library? It's honestly, to me, it sounds daunting just because, I mean, 100 components, that's like 100 plus components. That's massive. And it seems there's continually updates. Things are always getting better, getting new features added, much less more components being added to the suite. So just like generally, what's it like to work on a component library?
I like it a lot. I think it's great because you get to gain a better understanding of multiple usage of all of our components, the demand of developers, because our customers are developers like us working on their own applications or for their customers. And this helps us to have a very good idea of the big picture, the web world, how is it going. And it's nice to help people do their work and build their applications with our components. It's very dynamic and interesting. It's not like we're stuck in one thing and we're doing it for years. We get to do different things frequently.
Okay, so do you have, I know you pre-answered this for me in Teams, but do you have a favorite component?
I actually don't, maybe, but it's like picking your favorite child. Yeah, usually you go with the first one, but, but as far as components go, if you have to pick one, it's gotta be the grid.
The grid. I mean, I feel like, is she the most comprehensive out of all of the components, like as far as features and things that it does?
Maybe that I can think of. Tree list is getting closer because it's mostly the same or very similar. The scheduler is also very complex, but it's too complex to be a favorite.
Yeah, no one's favorite involves date and time handling. That immediately disqualifies you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Once you're in charge of time zones or any form of date, it's just out the window.
Poor scheduler. Oh my goodness. I think that makes me feel really bad because people are like, what's your favorite? And I'm like, the list view. I love the list view. It's beautiful. It's sexy. It does what you think it should do, right? Like it's and then you try to modify it and it's like, yeah, I can do that. And I'm like, who list view? But you know, you're making me feel bad for picking one. Like apparently we're not allowed to pick. Okay. TJ and Carl, I want you guys to shout out your favorites. And they can be from any product line. Wow, I'm really bad at directions. TJ and Carl.
You're above me, and TJ is finger there.
Show off.
So it's hard.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard not to pick the grid just because it does so much. Like, I mean, I've seen people kind of the point, like one of the great things of working on component libraries is your customers are developers, which is kind of fun in a way because you sort of understand the people that are using your tools a little bit. And it's been fun to see how people can take the grid and like build apps that are the grid. Like the grid is the app because it does so much. I mean, you could make it the way you view your data, the way you edit your data, the way you can have users organize it, send it to Excel. It really does a lot. And like, even I've been doing this for a while now also, and like I still find new ways of using it, new features that I didn't know existed. So, and I also think like our APIs for it are quite elegant. Like you can get quite a bit done with surprisingly clean code also.
I feel like I should specify in case there's any like front end UI lovers out there. The first time that I like was researching and looking into our grid, I was confused, so confused, because grid to my like CSS brain is like CSS grid, like layout grid, like, you know, like a bootstrap grid. And I was like, there's a lot of data in this grid. Like I was so confused. So I think that's where the term data grid comes from. And so if you're confused as I was originally, what's the other word for it? Is there another word for grid that's like synonymous
data
with
table
functionality? Data table
is pretty popular, I think. There might be some other word as well, but generally data grid, data table tends to
yeah, I think most developers are on par with what you're saying, but I think there might be a few like front of the front people who are like,
yeah, I think it depends a little bit on the background. If you come from, let's say, an enterprise-y kind of background, or just .NET, you know, Java, so some of these maybe, you know, a little bit larger, kind of, let's call them the traditional programming languages, right, for building a lot of big applications. Not to throw out any other, you know, useful languages out the window, just calling out those two specifically. But generally, data grids were a part, or just grids were a part of the default tool set there. So if you started a WinForms application, an ASP.NET Classic application, you know, before we had an Ajax, out of the box, you had a little toolbox that had the data grid or the grid view that you could drag and drop and add onto a page. So some of that terminology, you know, just comes from that historically. Yeah. But then let's say you start on the front end of things and the UI there, you know, or it started with React, Angular, Vue, or maybe you were in the jQuery days, but you used Bootstrap a lot since they were kind of hand in hand. You'll probably are used to the grid from CSS Grid, because honestly, even though everybody needs a data grid, I'm 100% convinced that no matter what application you write, you eventually need a data grid. There's going to be an admin dashboard or like something behind what you're writing. So you're going to need a grid. Probably the first time you were exposed to the word grid is through CSS Grid.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and even the word table, sometimes I'm like, it doesn't really relay the amount of features that our grid covers, because the first time I was looking at our grid, I was like, that is not a table. That is like a table that can like drive 1,000 miles an hour. Like it's because it's got like all of these like filtering and pagination, and even like it's like the list goes on. So I was like, she thick. So I love it. Does anyone, Carl, tell me your favorite's not the grid. You don't get to pick the grid.
I don't get to pick the grid. I mean, it is up there. It is up there. What I'm going to say probably is my favorite right now. It does change a little bit, but I'm a big fan of the AppBar, because how many times do I try to write the CSS for a top level navigation that's either sticky or fixed, or you know, that looks good and I can toss in a bunch of stuff? Quite a lot. And do I struggle with it every time? Yes. Now I don't, though, because I just add the AppBar in there and then I'm off to the races. It's great.
What is the AppBar in? Do you like, I'm really pushing knowledge here. Do you know what products have AppBar in, or is it in everything?
All of them.
Sorry, that was really mean.
No.
I'm linking up. I'm gonna link them up.
Yeah, I can't even pretend to be offended. No, it's so we have it in jQuery, we have it in Angular, we have it in React. Not yet in Vue, since Vue is a little bit of a younger library, so we're building that out from the ground up. So that's the AppBar is eventually going to be in there. I believe we even have it in Blazor, and then also in MVC and ASP.NET MVC, to be clear, ASP.NET Core, and yeah, it just exists kind of almost in all the web-based products that we have.
Is the AppBar related to the BottomNav, or no? Are those not related? Are they sisters? Anybody? Nobody? Yeah,
you can kind of think of them as related. The AppBar, actually, if you really want to, you can display it at the top or at the bottom. So it can be more than So that's why we didn't call it like the top bar or something like that. It is truly like
because
the
you have the
AppBar.
ability to make
yeah,
it.
you have the ability to do that. Yeah, the little bit of the difference, which is fun. The bottom navigation is essentially set up specifically to be like a navigation, right? So you have multiple items. So you have, like let's say home, about, and let's say data, right? Something like that. And what you do then is each and every one of those navigation items have like a text, an icon, or both. And that's the composition. You can create templates if you like to customize that a little bit. The app bar is a little bit more open and it's a little bit more dynamic. So you can essentially create sections, and then within those sections, you can do whatever you want, really. So if you want buttons, if you want avatars, text, a search box, whatever it might be.
I think we're offline. I'm really sorry to interrupt.
Oh.
Well, there's some issue with Twitch. I'm on
our Code It Live.
YouTube.
We're still streaming to YouTube. Hi, YouTube!
Oh, I think we're back.
Bear with us. This is weird. It looks like we are back on Code It Live. That was super weird. Thanks, Ivana, for the heads up. I did not realize that we were offline on Twitch. So sorry if you were watching on Twitch.
Oh, and I was just told so many secrets about the bottom
You
navigation.
did, and the only people who heard it were the YouTubers.
They're my favorite people, anyways. No, I'm
actually,
just kidding.
check out this segue, because I'll switch to the banner that if you do miss any of these streams or the release webinars, that all of our stuff is going to be put up on our YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and subscribe there to miss things like the last couple minutes or really anything we talk about this week.
Yes. No, there's lots of awesome recordings on our YouTube, and we do usually dual stream as well. So if you're ever like, where should I go? It's fine. Either is fine. We usually pull in your chat no matter what we're doing. So or where you are coming from. I question real quick, and then I will get to Dimitar because I have a question for him. I know our time is wrapping quickly. Carl, you were talking about the difference between the app bar and the bottom nav. And whenever I first saw bottom nav, my instincts were like, that's for mobile. Like that's for when your site goes, whoop, I'm on mobile. Is that not the right way to look at it? And then I was like, and then whereas AppBar is like, that's for desktop, whether, no matter what size of desktop. But maybe that was just Alyssa putting her own feelings on that component.
Yeah, so I'd say in general I agree with you. However, what I tend to see a lot in user experience now in the web is so many younger people that are now entering the workforce. Their first, like they've just been dealing with apps. Like that's all they've been doing, right? Like websites, yeah, they exist, but even for them, when they went to a website, a lot of times they were directed down to the mobile app, right? If they were on their phone. So I think that we're starting to see, and you've already seen some of this in desktop applications throughout the years, where they take something that works really well on mobile and kind of transition it over to desktop. So the bottom navigation, while I would say that it works really well for desktop apps or PWAs that you think might be displayed on an iPad or on a even smaller device, right? So if you build some responsiveness in, you can actually kick over to the bottom nav if you'd like to. I still think that you can probably get away with some desktop apps that have that form of navigation, because that might be what people are used to. I also mentioned that the app bar does have built-in responsive functionality. So if you think about most applications that have a navigation at the top, and when you get to a smaller screen, it turns into like a drawer, right, with a hamburger menu, and you click on that and it expands. You can integrate the KendoUI drawer into the KendoUI app bar, and then you can still deal with both desktop and mobile devices with that top navigation. So so that's a long answer for essentially like, yeah, you're mostly right. Or I would say probably like 99% right. But there might be a trend of something like the bottom navigation making it in more and more into app navigations. Yeah.
Could get fancy too and like show like just put in some media queries and use like the bottom navigation on certain screens and just like a drawer on others. Like, because the components are just building blocks. So.
Yeah, no, and
sort of choose your own adventure.
that's one of my like demos for this week. I'm really excited about is like what kind of media queries, like, because I don't know if you've ever tried to be like, hey, I want this component to show up on mobile only, but that's fun. Like looking into, there's like so many like regexes for like what like the window, like I'm finally gave up and was like, we're doing window orientation. Like we're just going to check and see if it's portrait or landscape. And if it's one of those, then I know it's mobile, but it feels hacky. So I love it though. I love being able to just easily like throw in something whenever it's this size or whenever we need this. And, but honestly, I found that like Carl was saying that a lot of them are already responsive. Like they just kind of work.
We try to build that into a lot of our components, even some that are a little bit crazy, if you ask me, like a date range picker, for example, when you have like one date picker and another date picker and you try to make that work. It's a little bit complicated to show on mobile. You almost have to take over more of the screen, right? Because how do you show two date pickers and what's like an intuitive thing? So there's some things that we try to kind of squeeze in on mobile as best as we can. There are other things that we actually take over a little bit more of the view in order to be able to handle those user interactions. But in like a basic level, like even something like the grid, you have full control over being able to control what column is displayed in what type of viewport. So if you want like every other column to display for some reason, like you just set it up. So, okay, I'm just going to drop every other one. You can do that. And bonus points, actually, if you use Bootstrap, for those of you that are using that, you can use things like the medium, large, and small definitions in the column declaration, and then it will just automatically adhere to the sizing coming from Bootstrap. So even in some of the bigger components, we have a lot of that functionality built in.
Before I see we're running out of time, Dimitar, I wanted to thank you so much. I had one more question for you.
Sure.
Is there a component that you are really excited about? I know we had, I think, 4 new components this release, but I didn't know if recently, even if it's not within R2, you had a component that was like your baby, that you were like, I give you to the world.
The last component I worked on was the TileLayout.
The TileLayout.
I'm not so excited about it, but it came up nice.
It came out real nice. And now, by the way you mentioned that, Alyssa, I just want Dimitar to be on the rock like in The Lion King, just holding up the tile view, like offering it to the world. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a tile layout. Yep. So now I need to work on my Photoshop skills and see if I can find a picture of you standing like this. Otherwise, we'll have to
listen. The drag and drop. I was actually talking to some Angular devs recently about this. Drag and drop's not easy. Like, and the tile layout does that. She does that, and seemingly everything kind of just flows into place flawlessly. Yeah, we should talk. You did good.
It's basically CSS grid with resizing and reordering and on steroids in general.
And that's why I love working for this team so much, because you're not, I mean, I know it's bad to talk negative about other people, but I've worked with other libraries, and I've never worked with a team that is always so forward thinking with their CSS, with their styles, with, hey, maybe we shouldn't be super specific or super generic, like, so that we're kind to people who are trying to customize alongside us. Like, I just want to thank you and your team so much, because I see the thought and I see the care that you put into these components and features. So thanks, Dimitar.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to let you go. Have a wonderful, I think it's night for you, evening, maybe?
Late afternoon, 4:30ish.
Have a wonderful afternoon, darling. And I'll talk to you.
Too.
I'll talk to you the next time. Mwah! Bye.
Bye.
We're still here. That's the important
yes.
piece.
No, we are. Sorry, I was saying bye.
It's more
my
to be had here. Yeah.
Aaron said something that I wanted to pop up. PWA did a PWA that had top and bottom nav, but the desktop view had all the function in the top nav. Question, Aaron, if you're still with us. They were both visible, and the bottom nav just wasn't functional, is what I got from that. Maybe you guys didn't get that from that. What did you
think? Maybe the bottom nav was used on
like whenever it went to mobile.
Yeah, exactly. Potentially.
Okay, that makes sense. But I don't have the view function up. Okay, because I'm actually that's my next thing after release calms down. is working on an Angular PWA with Kendo UI, and then trying to see about the experience on an iPhone. Because I keep hearing that apparently, I don't know, Apple's like, we don't like PWAs, but I thought it was possible and doable. So me and Aaron should probably that.
Yeah, it is possible, by the way. There's some politicking around that where it's like essentially the diehard, the like absolute diehard people on the PWA camp, they think that Apple isn't doing enough. I think it's essentially the way to summarize it.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. Especially for the company that decided that they wanted to kill Flash, and they started the whole revolution around HTML5. Kind of. Yeah. No, I mean, it was already there, but they essentially, sped it along. They were like, all right, fast tracking this, right?
Right.
So I think that's where some of the issues come up. But you can write PWAs and have it work on iOS. It's just. Once you get into some of the more advanced functionality, I think there might be some quirks that you have to work around.
Yeah, the only big thing that doesn't work is the whole installation experience. Like Apple,
I was wondering about that. Like it's possible though to get it on the device, right?
You can get it on the device. You can get it on the home screen. But you can't do like whereas Chrome has things where you can have prompts to install like a local web application. You can't do that with Apple. You have to tell people to add the home screen. And I'm an iPhone power user, and I couldn't tell you where the add to home screen button is in Safari. I've used it before. I can find it, but it's not like a big very overt obvious button. So you're like casual person who just uses iPhone.
Yeah.
They won't have any idea how to do that or how it works.
To do that.
That's part of the complaint is so you can do it, but if it's hard for users to actually do the installation process, is it worth?
Right.
Is anybody?
It's almost like gating the content behind these hoops, and how many hoops are users gonna actually jump through to get it on their mobile device? So well, thank you guys, because I was like, I think it's possible. I'm pretty sure anything's possible, but that's the world I live in.
Yeah,
Krish is joining us. I wanted to say hi to Krish. You tell us what flavor you use, or all the flavors, maybe. What you're saying, Carl.
Yeah, some people might use all the flavors, and those people are great. They like Dimitar said, I love all my children equally. So that's whoever takes and uses all the Kendo UI flavors. Thumbs up from my side. It also means you do what I deal with every day, which is writing Angular, React, jQuery, and Vue code all in one day, which it jumbles the brain a little bit for sure. Luckily, there's similarities, but sometimes the jack of all trades, master of none. I just sit here and I stare at the screen and I say, "You should be better at this." It's okay.
You get perspective though. I feel like I now I can have stronger JavaScript opinions, right? Which frameworks you like, which ones are better suited for different problems, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's not the worst.
No. And, it's a fun experience. It's just that if, let's say, I got into a deep discussion with, let's say, an Angular developer about something very specific in Angular, I might be able to have an initial opinion and then just get overwhelmed by information from an individual that knows more than myself. And then I say, yeah, I actually don't know what you're talking about.
It's so and that's the thing that I love hate about Angular is the depth, because there's so many, you look at the topics, and it was funny. In the GDE meetings, one of the Googlers was laying out for docs. They were laying out we break docs into these 8 topics, and I was like, oh, there's only 8 topics in Angular. Everything that you could ever do in Angular has to fall into one of these 8 categories. But then you go down the category.
Yeah, exactly.
You're is the category super difficult?
Every big project I've ever worked on, this applies to Kendo UI, this applies to Angular, this applies to NativeScript. One of the hardest meetings you ever have is at some point the documentation gets too big, and you're okay, well, we need to decide how to categorize this. And that is never a fun meeting, because it's never easy. It's never obvious to the whole room, oh, well, clearly there's 8 things. They fall
there's these 8 categories,
so
obvious,
nicely into these categories. They're evenly dispersed. the UX is going to make total sense. Like that never happens.
It was Dave Shevitz, and he is on the docs team, and he was telling me these categories, and I was like, wow, that makes Angular feel really like that's it. You learn these 8 things, you Angular, right? Like you done. Like
you check them off the list.
I'm sorry, I kind of hijacked our show, TJ, with all my chitter chatter. I wanted to. We talked Angular. We interviewed an Angular dev from the Kendo UI team, Dimitar, and that was beautiful. But now it is time to React.
Oh yeah, good timing. Krish also says I use React and want to start to use Angular. So we've got you covered on both ends here today.
Oh yeah, we do.
And
you should
just
DM me, and I'll tell you all about the love of Angular.
Just spread the good word.
So just to share, like if people are just joining us, basically today we're just hanging out to talk about the release, but we have a lot of activities going on this week. So I'm going to drop the banner here one more time. We're running a webinar later this Thursday to go through the release in sort of like a more presentational way. Is that a good word? Or like a formal way of going through it? Today we're just sort of hanging out and talking about the release, things that are going on. So we talked Angular for a while. And for the next 45 minutes or so, we want to talk about React. So I'm going to bring up some of the...
I might have gone over my time a little bit, so you might be short on time. Sorry.
You're fine. There's no rules here, Alyssa.
Yeah, no, that's a 50 DKP minus, Alyssa. So we're going to have to talk about that in the next raid meeting.
And Sarah says presentational is a word, so that's good enough for me. So Thursday, the more presentational form of this content. But we're going to talk about React, and I have a special guest of my own. So I want to welcome to the stream here, Kiril Peyanski. Kiko, how's it going, man?
Hi, everyone. I appreciate the jokes about reacting to KendoReact now. Also the DKP jokes. Hello, everyone. I'm Kiril. I'm an engineer from the KendoReact team. And today we are reacting to React, I guess.
Exactly. No, we should have some fun here today. And actually, let me I'm just moving some windows around. Bring on my screen to talk about Angular. So Alyssa kind of went over the short list of things that changed with Angular. So I should show up. This is like the high level overview, like the cheat sheet of what changed with React. So first of all, actually, Kiko, it's good we have you here because this is actually probably my favorite thing in the release, actually, just because I find it so useful, is if you go to our documentation now and you pick, like I'll just pick any component here, a grid. So first of all, we have a lot of demos. I think, didn't you run a script for me? Don't we have like 1,800 demos as part of KendoReact now at this point? It's a very large number.
It's a large number. It's close to 2,000 demos, and this is without the both variations of a single demo. Yeah, right now
are they all in Stacklets?
Yes, I think all of them are.
Amazing.
And one thing that's very cool. So this is one of my favorite parts of using KendoReact in general is that like there are all these runnable examples that are like extremely copy and paste friendly. You can get the source, you can bring them to Stacklets to tinker, and so this is great. But like there's this nice new thing as part of this release is that you can now toggle between JavaScript and TypeScript and also hooks versus classes when viewing any of these examples, which I think is huge considering some of these demos. These are not small demos, right? Like this is not like a hello world thing we're showing, right? This is a fairly complex, this is almost like a little mini app, and there are hundreds, thousands of these things. And I just think this is so nice because like for me, I like TypeScript, I use TypeScript, and having like little things, like if you go down in here that like are going to help with just code completes and such has been really, really helpful.
So yeah, we basically identified the growing popularity of TypeScript, and we wanted to have this out of the box, at least for our demos. So our amazing support team, so kudos to them, migrated all 2,000 demos to have both TypeScript and JavaScript support, as well as we are not opinionated library. So we want to embrace the future of the hooks, but we also want to provide support for the folks who want to use classes components. So we also have the classes variation of a single demo to show how it can be done in both worlds.
Yep. Yeah. So this is like the hooks version here, and then I can go up here and switch to classes, and then I get a class implementation of this. And I think like not all of these demos are quite done because there are 2,000 of them. So if you do run into a few of these here or there that we're working on getting all of them done, as you might imagine, going through 2,000 demos takes a while. And I like Aaron said, do we get a pizza party when we hit 2,000? We might have to plan something. So that is cool. I've already been using this. So I have a little sample app that I maintain that I use for these releases. And I write everything with TypeScript. So I have a little like hello world TypeScript code down here. And so just being able to copy and paste TypeScript has made my life a lot easier when I go to build these things, just because it's just quite a bit simpler to code. So thanks for all your work on that, because it's been super useful. And if anybody else, so I have all the list of these features. So we have a couple new components. We can show these things off: external drop zone, skeleton. This is a new like data visualization gauge. We have new features to the grid. The date time picker can have floating labels. We have some updates to the PDF generator, scheduler, contrast picker, or contrast color picker, a new demo for the inputs, and some Gantt updates. So if you in chat have like a favorite in here, if there's one that you want to mess with and you want us to dive into and show, let me know. Otherwise, I feel like we could just sort of tinker around, play with these, build something interesting, if that sounds good to everybody else.
And maybe talk about how you cope with not having separated style sheets.
What? Not separated style sheets, Alyssa?
No, I love React. Keep going, darling. It was an Angular.
She was very quick. Yeah, just a quick little jab. Yeah.
I love React. It's good. I can't cope. I have to have my separate style sheet. And the first time I tried learning React, I was like, separate HTML and CSS, and it was just like the whole internet like together was just like no.
Well, you can do it. The problem is there's like 72 different ways of doing it. So what you have to do is go through an evaluation process and choose your favorite way of doing it.
Yeah, with
I feel like I was like
great responsibility, right?
I feel like by searching that, I was like tagged as like no, not allowed to react, right? Like
the other rule is once you pick your favorite way of doing it, then you have to write a very strong opinion about it on like a place like Medium, right? Because you have to declare that all the other ways of doing it are wrong because you arrived at the correct way of doing it.
You have arrived, yeah.
So. Alyssa, I'm not seeing people picking in chat. Oh, you have a skeleton looks pretty nice. So let's do skeleton because this was new in Angular as well, and I believe it has a pretty similar API. So why don't we play with skeleton? And I have it imported, so we'll see if I can just remember where this is, because I think you can. It's from like progress with 2 S's. Kendo. React, I think it's in indicators. This is why TypeScript is so nice, right? It's going to help me. Skeleton, and what happens if I just type in a skeleton? There's probably some defaults, right? Yeah, there we go. So a skeleton is like, I'm about to load something, and I want to show like a placeholder of whatever it is I'm going to load. So it looks like by default, it's going to assume like you have some text or something, but there is like a shape. And yeah, there we go. So we can go rectangle, text, circle. And we can see how that looks. So you get a couple building blocks for doing this. And actually, so Carl and I were chatting about this of like, so this is pretty cool, but then the next question becomes like, how do I use this in an app? So I have, little implementation of this that took me a little bit to build. So I'll show how I did it, and maybe we can chat about it a little bit. Where I've got this like dashboardy looking application here. And actually, if I make this, so we want to look at the skeleton. So I'll make this take basically infinity to load, so we can just look at the skeletons.
That's what I did, like when I was working on my skeleton demo, and then I like forgot that I added the delay, and I was like, later on, I was like, I broke my API.
Well, and it gets tricky too, like especially when you're managing transitions, because the other thing is like I almost needed to build a button in here that's like, okay, now I'm ready to.
Oh, that's so smart. Where you're like, okay, load the data now. That's so smart.
So the way I did this, and I'm curious, like, especially in the chat, if you've built something like this before, like, because I struggled a little bit to get the animation right. So basically, what I said is I have more or less an if check here that says, this might as well just say, like, do I have no data, right? Like, so if I probably should have said, like, I don't know, whatever. But
can't you say bang? Can't you say bang person name or no?
If person.
Bang.
Well,
exclamation point. Would that not? That's how I did mine, but I didn't know maybe your data is set up weirdly.
The data is set up weird because it is local data. I'm not actually hitting an endpoint, so I start with like an empty array, and then I come in and.
Oh, okay. So you can't check for
But yeah, in like a real app, you would probably say like if bang person right here, and so what I do is I have like a section here that says, okay, here's like my fake card, more or less, where I have. I'm almost like creating like a recreation of my actual content, which is going to be down here. So this is a little avatar thing that I found for creating fake avatars, which is kind of fun. Some UL with some KendoReact icons. And then the new, actually, we can knock off 2 components in one demo here, because this is the new circular gauge as well, which is kind of a neat little component as well. And what I tried to do, and this was like the tricky part, I can bring up like my styles for this also, if I could find them. I think like I tried to make the styles so like, yeah, so like I tried to give like these things. I probably could have been smarter in CSS, because you see like this is like duplication, right? Like, so ideally I wouldn't duplicate, but I tried to like assign the same styles to the skeleton pieces as I did to like my chunks that are going to come in, so like they have the same dimensions, because I didn't quite nail it. These circles kind of, that doesn't look quite right. I don't know why, but if we turn this back on.
Well, I know you can give them both width and height. Did you do that somewhere or no?
I think I did, because this circle here, right? Like it should be 100 by 100 circle, but it's not quite a circle. And I'm not totally sure why it's not a circle.
I wonder if you don't have enough space for them to be 100 by 100.
That might be.
Right now. They're like, there's no such thing, darling. I'm curious if they're even getting that width and height, like, yeah, on the circles. So what does it say?
Oh yeah, I gotta make them go away again. Bring the skeletons back.
The next stream will just be setting that in the beginning and just talking over the demo, and just wait the 90 minutes to 2 hours it takes to load.
I wonder, so like this actually, does it need to be, I don't know. You probably shouldn't be haphazardly changing this like me. Like you should probably be like thinking about what you're doing and not just like making this up on the fly. Although this is looking better, even though what I'm doing.
Most developments on the, let's be real here.
You can probably reduce some of the text in the middle. Like, even though that represents, I think, the size that you're going to have, I think in terms of like UX, having a little bit of space in between is all right. And having like just an indication that it's going to be something there, but not like the exact size can work.
Can you give your card body with skeleton some gap on flex? Because I know you're flexing there.
I am flexing.
Say like gap 5 pixels or something, right? And yeah, in card body, yeah. Did it do it? Okay, I don't know if that's enough. Maybe you need more. I don't know how big it should be, but it did work. It gave you a bit of space.
That definitely helped the skeleton space. What I want to know is if it broke the other view, but this looks.
Oh, because we're talking to both card bodies right now.
We're talking to both card bodies, but hold on. No, we're doing this. So we're gonna take that down, and then we're gonna say we're gonna put our gap over here, right? Because we want a gap of 5 pixels, and then I also bumped these up just for this bit. Again, making this up as we go, but let's just see how this looks.
I love it. I love working like things on the fly like this. The worst part is you do so much in DevTools, and then you refresh, and you're like, crap. I should have been doing that in my.
The added pressure of then also being on stream trying to figure it out. Oh no, TJ.
What happened? Oh man, we were so close.
Yeah, did you? Okay, I think. So you took off the height? Is that what happened?
I don't know what happened. We're gonna try again here. So that looks. Those are still less circular. I don't know. I think we're closer though. Like that feels better than it was. But in general too. So I have this, and then I also have an animation. So basically,
oh, you animated it. I didn't even get that far. What are you animating? Like its appearance?
Yeah. So basically, everything that comes in is animated in. So essentially, these are both. This is an SVG. This is, and again, like my CSS should probably be smarter so that I'm not duplicating this because this is like the same thing. But essentially, this stuff gets faded in so that it's still not perfect to me. Like I still feel like.
Oh yeah, no, you can totally see it. The transition instead of just popping. Yeah, I know. I was worried on stream it might not. But I think it's coming across. I think you can see. Okay. It. You might like up it to 10 seconds to show a really slow transition, but it's fading in for sure.
Well, and I think too, this is a UX pattern I'm seeing now a lot more in the wild. I don't know, like I don't follow UX trends. I don't know if any of you do, but like I feel like I've seen this skeleton become more of a thing. Like I just, off the top of my head, of course, I can't think of any apps, but it's definitely more common now.
I can think of an
like
app
in the last few days. I keep seeing them. You have an app today, Carl?
Yeah, Teams, Microsoft Teams. Oh. If chat is slow to load, or if it takes a while when it's booting up, which if like me, you had issues this morning and had to reboot your entire machine just to be able to join a meeting, there are times when like everything in Teams, like who's in the chat, especially if it's a big chat, right? Who's as you're in a meeting and then you open that up on your right to like have the chat pop up as that is loading. There's some skeleton stuff in there, so it's just chock full of skeletons, which is interesting. Google Images generally is also does the same thing. What's actually interesting about Google Images is that it will also try to. Oh, my Google device just thought I was talking to it, and now it's showing me pictures of cats. Oh, yeah. Anyways, so if that takes too long to load, they'll do a skeleton component, and for bonus points, they'll actually try to figure out what is the main color represented in the image, and then change that. So, like, think of the Spotify logo, right? That's mainly the Spotify green. So the skeleton actually is that green color as it's loading, which is interesting.
TJ, can you bring up Aaron's site? It's a Sitefinity customer, and he did this before the skeleton component was a thing.
Oh yeah.
So it's like IMG global.
Yeah.
Image global 1G. But yeah, it has the same thing that we're talking about, where like I just loaded it on mine, and it's like skeleton, and then it loads in. It's nice.
Oh yeah. There we go. Yeah. That looks like the same design even.
So this is definitely more about like perceived performance, right? Because it's kind of similar to what we're already doing, right? You asynchronously load something, especially like images, large blocks of content. But this gives the user an indication that something is happening. So rather than slapping a bunch of loading like circles, right, loading indicators somewhere on the page, or one big one for the entire application, you can now, as components are loading asynchronously, you can have these skeletons available. And while you're not increasing performance in any way, the user is like, wait, hold on, something's happening. I'll just wait for that. Because, you have like a second or like 1.2 seconds or something like that to keep the user's attention. So you got to make sure something's actually happening.
That, and it looks better, like it looks better visually. So like even if it's just like a half a second, and so it's like barely noticeable, it looks better than having like nothing there and then stuff popping in. Whereas like instantly, if you have the skeleton to load, and it's kind of like a placeholder that eases the content in, so nothing's shifting around, and it's kind of like, like a placeholder. It's like, this is where things are going to park as soon as they're loaded. And so, yeah, I think it's like for users waiting, but also just visually appealing.
Yeah, because TJ's a good example of that. This application, right, where you have an idea of how much data is going to be there and what the actual end result is going to be. Like even in something where it's just long list in the list view, right? You get a full idea of what the application is going to look like, and there's not like any like jank or anything like that in terms of things popping around as items are loading in.
I'll also point out, just because it's a part of this exact same screen, one of the other new components is the circular gauge, and I believe, Alyssa, this was new for Angular as well, right? I believe it was a part of this release.
Yes. I'm like behind a banner. I wanted you to see the Aaron's comment of like, it's not fun to write your own. But yes, we do.
And what I like about this is like, it's just a nice, simple component. And I also think it's fairly common. Like my first thing that came to mind was like, almost like a leaderboard. So I'm ranking these fake people, right? So Miguel Davis here is crushing it. And down, let's see who's in the bottom. Gavin Lee needs to step up their game, though. They're doing a poor job as a development officer, apparently. But
okay, so what are these percent? Because I was like, is this their like 12% human? What's their 12%?
There's not much rhyme or reason to this. If you want to help me come up with a coherent narrative to this.
Yeah, it's like it's
their personal website. So look at that way if you want.
Yeah, it's a score of their personal website.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
I don't know. Like, I mean, one of the struggles with building these demos is like, I want it to feel like a real app, but I also want to show like the features, right? So like, sometimes you do things like this where it's just like, oh, we're just like ranking people that work here at Acme Industries. Apparently, I don't know.
No, I think we actually have we've got a leaderboard like that going on right now with like an internal team that I'm doing where it's like a challenge, like we're challenging each other. So it's like an internal Acme challenge, we don't know what their challenge is, but that's the score.
Yeah, no, and it doesn't have to be like bad, right? Like it could just be like something charitable or so, like just like a fun internal game you're playing, right? Like it doesn't have to be like this is the human worth of each of these people.
Yeah, that can get kind of dark real quick, I think. Probably avoid that.
Nobody went there. No one went there.
Yeah, but like, this sort of like UI though, like I think what's cool about like, so the API for this, right? Basically all you have to do is provide a value. So in this case, it's going to be 1 to 100. We can show in the docs in a minute. You can change like what the range is and such as well. I think 0 to 100 is the default. But what makes it really unique is you can do colors. So the fact that if you notice these, the color of these things changes as I move down the list. And that's because of this configuration, which I find this nice and human readable. Like it's very evident what this is doing, values from this and this or this color and then on up. And you can make that as simple or as complex as you wanted it to be. Like if you have some gap, like it could be like a red-green, right? Like there's some threshold that once you reach it, you're in success zone or whatever. So you could do that. And then also center render. So in this case, this is like, what should I put in the middle of this thing? And so you have a hook for that. And on the docs, there's...
At least I know on like the Angular side, you can do a lot with your center template.
Yeah, let me bring that up.
Yeah, it's a true template that allows you, to toss in just about anything you want in there. And I think my favorite thing about it is that it automatically calculates where the center is, so you don't have to do any of that calculation on your own. So if you have to resize the gauge at any point, either dynamically or just as you're trying to fix where things are on the page, you don't then have to go in and tweak. Okay, so adjust this by this many pixels, or try to kind of chase where the true center is. It just does all that for you.
This sounds like someone who's had difficulties centering things.
Yes, I have done that with some of our own components before we added center templates to them. So yes.
Kiko, are there any components or features that you want to highlight or talk about? Any exciting features on this? We've got like 20 minutes left, so we can dive really into any of this. What would you like us to highlight and chat about?
All of the features and components are special to me. They're like
no, you have to pick a favorite. Come on.
If I have to pick a favorite, it will definitely be the scheduler, because it's the closest one to my heart. So,
gotcha. Well, let's bring up the scheduler. And actually, I think the main change for this part of for this release is actually something that you get without any code changes. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
The multiple selections you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a quick stop for the question.
Because I think, so now, like, of course I randomly generate these calendar invites. So of course I got ones that I couldn't take, but.
You're getting some props from Nick, TJ. Wanted you to see the props.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Nick. Of course, I'm letting Nick down here because my like random generated stuff here is screwed up.
This is like when I think calendars are cursed today. Anytime anyone tries to pull up a calendar, just bad things are going to happen.
Well, I generate random events. I can fix this by just generating a lot of random events. By the way, one of my favorite things to use for demos is this library called Chance.js, because I like for my demos to be just like bring in totally random stuff, because I just think that's fun. But so as part of this release, so first of all, I think like anytime I show some of these components, I just think it's just cool to take a minute to just realize what this is doing is kind of cool, right? Like this is like a full-on calendar that's built with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that you can toss into any of your apps and fully customize and make these entries editable and add new things. And it's just like pretty cool that you can do that. And one new thing you can do with this release, and I think other calendar, I think this is pretty common, like web calendar functionality. Actually, I'm kind of curious to try this now, but so you now like select multiple events and move them up. You have to hold down the control key on a Mac or command key on a Mac and sort of move them around, which is kind of nice because I've done this on my calendars before where like I have like a block of things and I need to move them from one day to another.
You're like, Wednesdays are no good anymore.
Yeah, kill Wednesdays. You can also
all events from Wednesday goes to Thursday. I'm free today. Go on everything at once.
You can also resize. This one I don't think I've done before, but like, oh no, I keep forgetting, like, you got to hold down the command key, but you can like resize events as well simultaneously. So I don't know how you all calendar, but I don't think I've used that trick before, but it's there.
I love that that's a verb now.
How do you calendar? That's our next like marketing message around the scheduler, and I love it.
But it's pretty cool. Like you don't need any code to enable this. This just works by default, which is kind of nice.
This feature for us was not to simply allow selection of multiple events and drag and drop them, but allow the developer to customize when this happens. For example, if you don't want to hold the control key while dragging, it is possible, and it is done through configuration. So this was the biggest feature of the scheduler, but we had to ship it together with the multiple selection. And in our demos, we are showcasing how to change the things from holding command to holding control, or if you want shift, and this is done entirely through configuration. No additional code is needed to tell the scheduler when and what to do. So I would say this is the biggest feature. But yeah, it was necessary for the multiple selection, and we wanted to give everyone the freedom to implement multiple selection however they want. So not limiting you to holding control or command or whatever.
Yeah, I see. So the default, this is kind of what I like about some of our more advanced components, is the default normally does what you probably want. But I see what you're saying now, that like if you need to, you can get into it. And what does this demo do? So this changes multiple selections to shift. So presumably you overwrite the component you're using for the added item.
Yeah, exactly.
And then add a bit
you're
of
defining
extra logic.
What to happen when you're holding a specific key. And for this example, we're modifying the key to be a shift.
I like it. And I like too that, like, just because probably most people won't want to do this, it's kind of, it's there, but it's behind the scenes.
Yeah, and we have a relatively good default with the command and control key. And yeah, if you want, you can modify it, but we have the default there for you.
I like it.
Yeah, I think that speaks a little bit to, now both Kiko and Dimitar mentioned this, that we have some sane defaults that we like to create when we think about a particular feature, but often we think about, okay, what's the next thing that we're going to get a request for? And the thing after that makes us kind of think about, okay, what do we need to do in order to not just offer the same default, but how can we build something into the component that allows us to have our customers extend it to literally whatever they want to do. So even if it's not best practice, sometimes you have the requirements that come from somewhere and you have to follow it, and just having these options available, I think is really impressive.
And actually, that does remind me. I do want to show, because I think it's sort of related, the new selection options we have in the grid as well, because I think those are kind of cool. And I'm actually curious to hear from chat if they've used some of this stuff before in their apps. So let's say you have a grid, which I have here, and I'm just moving some things around. So one thing you can now do in your grids is there's this new selectable prop, and you get a couple different things you can pass to this. First of all, just whether it's enabled, so whether you can select things. And actually, let me set these to just like the simple values just to start, then we can build up so you can see what each of these things does. So if you have a grid and you just say, yes, this is selectable in single thing, basically what you can do is you can now click on the grid rows to just select a row. And I could totally see you wanting to do this, right? Like I'm showing people a list of things. I need them to like pick one out, or maybe even just highlight one. Like I want a little more contrast to be able to see this row. Just kind of a nice, simple way, select an item from a grid cell. But you can get more complicated from this, and that's where I really want to hear about like people's use cases. So I guess one easy thing is you could say multiple, which this again sort of makes sense to me. I want the ability to select. I probably need to hold down a key. Yeah, I want the ability to select multiple rows. I could also see that like I'm building a grid and I want people to say like which ones of these do you use or something like that. Cell selection is interesting to me. So I'm very curious if people have done this before, because it's similar, but you can actually select individual cells, which is cool. But I keep going into my head of like, what's the use case here?
Well, like I do a lot of organizing, and there's often times where I'm in different grids, and like I need to get all the emails out. And so I'm like, okay, that email's over here, that email's over here, or like I need to get like certain pieces of information out. So like I'm wondering if like maybe that
so you're
could
going
lead
like
to
this.
Yeah, and I don't need those others. And then, but maybe there's other reasons. I don't know. That's one way I've used single cell selection.
Yeah, you could also put like a button here, like export or like copy to clipboard, something like that, so that people could select this, and this.
Aaron saying, cell, that's cool. Wasn't it just row before? Multiple with a bulk delete. I could have used that before.
Yeah, bulk delete could be fun. And I know there's ways of accomplishing this with like checkboxes too. It's sort of just, I think it's again, like this is just another building block you have. So depending on what requirements or how you build this is just like another.
I feel like being able to select cells like this is less clunky than checkboxes. Like I feel like checkboxes are useful sometimes, but they take up a lot of room. and like grids, like they're so data intense already. Anytime you can like reduce like visual things.
Well, and you can combine them too. I think there's actually a way of showing how you can get like, like this to me, I like this UI quite a bit where you can select a row, but then there's also a checkbox so that like, I kind of like this because the, like by default, I think the only problem with this is like telling people that selecting things is an option. Whereas I think like the checkbox, I don't know. I might even,
you're saying it's not a default user behavior yet to like just assume you can select them. So the checkbox is a nice clue indicator.
Yeah. And this is like where I think it depends. Like, because if it's like I think you can get away with more if you're building like an internal app, you can get away with a little more like hidden functionality because you're building it for like power users or like people that you can explain what it is. Versus like if you're like a public facing app that people might only use one time and you want it to be like the most idiot proof thing in the world, I think you come in with a different mindset. So I don't know. It kind of depends.
Aaron said, and making the size of checkboxes big enough for users not to complain is hard. Listen, I think we could make some checkboxes. All right. We could.
So something that isn't available in React, but I can mention on the jQuery side that we introduced with this release, just to throw some jQuery love in here, is TJ, we're asking, why would I select something from this column and then, this other column, maybe I select like 2 or 3 items, and then the third column I do, random selection, right? We actually introduced a way to be able to export to Excel when you do that and be intelligent about it. It's kind of an interesting scenario because what is that as a default, right? What is the same thing to do? But essentially, the thought process that we have is if you select all these random entries across different different columns, you can do things like, for example, export and automatically create the headers in Excel. And then have blanks in the rows. So if you select something on the first row in one column and then something on the 10th row in the other column, you can either truncate them or potentially have 10 rows. Some of them are blank, and then have the 2 columns. So it's a little bit of an interesting scenario, and it's not as easy to kind of I guess think of like all the same defaults, but there's some interesting stuff that you can do here. So let's see what
I'm totally trying this. Like, I'm a sucker for you. You mentioned one of these things, and I got to try it, right?
Yeah, brand spanking new. So
there are some. I don't know if you all have seen, but there are some like Excel grid users out there that are like hyper users that like I'm just like, that's a thing, you can do that, what? Like, because that's what they live in. So sometimes these features were like, why though? And then they're like, I cannot live without it.
yeah it's I think the reason every application needs a grid is that really every application we write is replacing an Excel file. That's what it is. Like every app you have is an Excel file that has just been replaced. You go to book flights on Expedia.com, that used to be an Excel file, right?
It's really sad.
You go anywhere, right? And it's all just where.
And you think about any form ever could really come down to being an Excel file.
Just an Excel file. Yeah, it is. You just represent an Excel
so
file. But
instead of like turtles all the way down down. It's Excel files all the way down.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's actually 100% true, right? Yeah, there's a lot that people are asking for from Excel, so that's why they want to see that in grids and other applications that they're creating.
This is interesting. I'm trying to think of what I expected this to be in here, like, and I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, you can. There's some customization that you can do, but essentially the idea is there's no, I don't think, real true answer to how do you export that in the right way, because if you're just grabbing a bunch of different cells,
all over the place.
Yeah, I would, if we just lay that out as a hypothetical and the four of us had to answer what's the most logical thing, I think we'd come up with 4 different answers.
With 4 different answers. I know. That's the sticky bit. There's the rub, right? Like,
yeah.
My preference is whenever there is like a clear UI path, user experience path, and then you take that path. So I don't like this uncharted territory.
I do like with the rows, like this is nice, right? Like, because that's if it's rows, things are simpler. So yeah, apparently we need this in React.
Yeah, I know I just added some potential work for any React developer that works on Excel exportation, right? But because this, by the way, yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting scenario for us as a component vendor, because we need to anticipate some sane defaults and then also try to make sure that people can create what they think are sane defaults, right? Yeah, it makes for, it's not a trivial thing to solve for sure.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of, I should show the last of these options, drag, because I've definitely seen this. I mean, this is a thing you can do in Excel, but you can also do this sort of thing now too, right? Like where you can drag, use your mouse to do the selection, which I think, especially if you have some ability to like export or copy to the clipboard. And even though we don't like totally support this like full jQuery thing they showed right now, there's nothing stopping you from like adding a button and that lets users like copy to clipboard, because Kendo will tell you which of the cells that are selected here. So you could easily give the user some way of working with that data.
Yeah, and you can, by the way, write that yourself too, because our Excel exportation that we have built into the grid is actually also a standalone package that allows you to generate Excel files, workbooks, multiple sheets, like all the crazy things you can do automatically exporting from the grid. So if you have business requirements around this, at least you can grab all the associated data items here, and then you can auto-magically, so to say, with, of course, all your own hard work, generate whatever Excel file that you want to based off of that selection.
So very cool. Well, we're coming up on our time. Kiko, thank you for joining us. Is there anything else you want to highlight for people? Anything else? Like, what's your like favorite like hot tip from this release? Is there anything you want people to know?
Well, we have TypeScript support. Go there, guys. Migrate to TypeScript as soon as possible. And for everyone that wants to pick up a fight with their designers, go and check out the color contrast picker, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So definitely a shout out. Like, we're big TypeScript fans here, and I think like especially with this release and the demos, like TypeScript is now just that much better to use with Kendo. You're very productive. But we can end on this note: the color contrast picker, because this is kind of cool. There's now, so we've had a color picker in KendoReact, but so one thing you can do now is help choose, basically automatically show contrast between two colors. So this is showing like if your designers say like, I want a bright red background and I want pink text on it, right? Like,
no.
You could say like, that's not a great idea. If you're using red, maybe let's go with, oh man, I can't even find I need like a, how do I get, I need like black, right? Maybe if I go all the way.
This is so fun. It reminds me, my husband, he's a dev as well, and he does iOS stuff for hotels, and there's this build system that he created, and if the client inputs like, here's my background color, here's my text color, and as part of the build process, it will fail, and they'll come back to him and be like, this failed. Why isn't the build going through? And he's like, you requested white text on a white background. So this reminds me of that, of like a contrast.
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah.
I found one that works. You go with neon green, and then you put black text on it, and you have like amazing contrast with that.
Or so that's the old terminals, right? They had the best contrast. We really should just go back to the.
They were onto something. Yeah. That also is pretty similar to good old Progress here too.
Wait,
like
wait. Are you saying that green and black combo was intentional, or it was just like what the screen could do at the time? Because I thought it was just what the screen could do.
It's just what the screen could do at the time. But what I'm saying is that they're onto something. We already had the best thing. Why?
I was like, wait a minute.
All this other stuff. Yeah. I just went back to like floppy disk the size of my body and just simpler times.
How are you going to explain? Like, I've got a 2-year-old. How am I going to explain not only what a floppy is, but like what a CD is? So it holds data? I mean,
my plan is to, whatever offspring that I have, I'm just going to raise them the way I was raised. So like figure out, when I was 2, these things were available technology wise. So I'm going to have them start off on a Sinclair, and I'm going to have them figure out how to load the games they want to play off of audio cassettes. And then I'm slowly going to introduce them to more and more modern things.
Joel is cracking me up. It's called going to the museum.
Yeah. So I still have all these things. So this is going to be it's going to be like
Carl's
20
house
20 something.
is the museum.
Yeah, exactly. And they're going to be like, what are you guys talking about? I have a landline where I have to ring. That's the only way I can call anybody. Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave with a parenting tip here, because I have 10-year-olds, so I have kids that are a little bit older, and what you need to do, the best way of handling this is you don't answer the question for them. You ask them, what is a cassette tape? And then you just like sit back and you're like, all right, this should be good, right? Because the kids come up with like the wildest stuff for when they try to explain to you what some of this technology is.
You have to record them answering it, like for me, TJ. I want to see what they say, because that is just the funniest.
Yeah.
Do you ask them like just what do you say cassette tape? What do you think that is? Or do you like just play something and the dinner table, and then as everybody gathers for dinner, you say, family, what is this object? And then like that's like the next activity.
Mystery.
Oh, it's fun. We showed them like the latest one was cameras that used to require film, right? Like, and you just ask them like, how do you think that worked? And then it's just it's amazing, right? Cameras didn't just like magically store pictures.
Oh,
yeah, that's so cool.
Quick thing. Did you know, I saw this on TikTok. Like if we say to someone our age, hold up the phone, we do this. And if you say to a kid, like, you should do this to your 10-year-old, CJ, hold up a phone, they do this. Like, it's like they're holding up a mobile device. Yeah, it's no longer like, you remember like with the cords? Like, that's not a thing anymore. This is not what people do. Like the young ones of today. It'll age you. Go ask a young person.
I'm young, he says, slowly fading away. Years just passing by.
Well, so thanks everybody for joining us today. I think between squirrels and TikTok, we've went off the rails at times, but hopefully you had some fun watching this. If you want more of this, see, look, I'm crushing the segues today. We're going to be here doing this all week. I'm going to throw some links and banners and such. So we'll be here tomorrow. We're going to be here throughout the week. And then all building up to the webinar we're doing for KendoUI on Thursday, which I'll drop in the chat. You can sign up for that. If you sign up, it's a good idea to sign up.
At the webinar. Aren't we giving away prizes like at the webinar? I think we do. I think that's a thing we do. I don't know. I could have just made that up.
I don't know.
Now I feel like I'm obligated. I'm obligated to give away.
You're obligated. You might have to send that squirrel to somebody.
But it's fun. The prize is spending time with you, Alyssa. So even if her...
Me and my made-up vocab, you're welcome. No, seriously, come hang out. It's going to be fun. And we, on our next stream, will be doing more demos and building and Angular and React, and then the webinar it comes. So
yeah, and I don't know if I think some of our coworkers are going to be on later today.
So I don't have them on. I might be missing a stream. I don't have them on my calendar today. I have them on tomorrow and then the next day, but I could be 1000% wrong.
So. It looks like later today. So I just dropped in a link to the other ones. It looks like 1:30 to 3 Eastern today. We're reporting Test Studio, just mock Fiddler. So also great stuff.
Fiddler. Okay, cool.
And then we've got Blazor tomorrow morning, US time, Angular React. So lots of fun stuff. So check out those links if you're interested. But thanks everybody. Thanks Kiko for hanging out with us today. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate it. Yeah. And Carl, Alyssa, I'll be seeing you. We'll be around. We'll be spending a lot of time together this week. So thanks for everybody for joining us. Come back. We'll have some fun.
Bye everybody.
Bye.